This podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Legend of the Bones. Following in the footsteps of giants, Legend of the Bones is a chimera. A mix of old-school tabletop RPG and dark fantasy storytelling. As its name might suggest, in Legend of the Bones the dice rule. There'll be no rerolls, no fudging the dice, no metacurrency. The roll of the bones will determine the character's destiny, and no one will be spared their fate. None shall escape the destiny of bone. Last time on Legend of the Bones. The companions descended into a vast circular library within the inner vault of Pen Malkine. Here, they discovered Demelza, the keeper of the Eye of Krevik, sitting on the floor next to a lectern, upon which a huge book lay open. Approaching Demelza, it was apparent that the mage was alive, albeit barely, yet unresponsive. Recognising that Demelza was slowly starving to death, Lena prayed for the miracle of nourish to help sustain her, and in turn received an additional boon from the Nine for her piety, who physically marked the cleric with a visible radiance. But the moment of holy intervention was interrupted when Taalien fell to his knees screaming, before succumbing to the same fate which had befallen the old mage. Valen examined Demelza further, seeking some clue to her condition, when he noticed the Eye of Krevik hanging in an amulet about the old woman's neck. Reaching to reveal it, Valen inadvertently touched Demelza, which, through the connection of being two keepers of Hellstones, roused the old mage to speak the word, book. Investigating the tome upon the lectern, Valen found it to contain confessions of many sins, each supernaturally surfacing, then receding before being replaced by another. When Edith's name appeared, Valen looked away, but at that moment the young mage cried out, falling under the same curse as Demelza and Taalien. Valen determined that the tome was responsible for their fate, and casting the spell Ignite, he set the pages aflame, breaking the curse. Later, after an emotional reunion between Demelza and Edith, Valen questioned the old mage about how she intended to destroy the Eye of Krevik, whereupon Demelza revealed that it was her intention to cast the Hellstone into the Rift. Chapter 66, Part 1, Day 62, Afternoon. Party status: Beric, 53 out of 53 hit points. Lena, 34 out of 34 hit points. Valen, 21 out of 21 hit points. Taalien, 32 out of 32 hit points. Edith, 14 out of 14 hit points. Demelza, 11 out of 11 hit points. Spells available: Valen has memorized Charm Animal, Push, Shield, Soothe, Revive, Clairvoyance, and Dragon's Breath. Taalien has memorized Earworm, Resolve, Poetic Prose, Pitch, Imbue, and Lullaby. Edith has memorized Flame, Sleep, Camouflage, and Knock. Lena can pray for 1 first-level miracle, 2 second-level miracles, 2 third-level miracles, 1 fourth-level miracle, and 1 fifth-level miracle. The silence hung thick and oppressive in the forsaken library, as if the very books themselves were listening, as the weight of Demelza's revelation settled like a shroud over the company. The air, still rank with the acrid tang of burnt parchment and scorched wood, carried thin curls of smoke, which rose lazily from the heap of ash smudging the flagstone floor. In her weakened condition, Velen could not conceive how Demelza could hope to achieve her goal of destroying the Eye of Krevik, but resolve was nonetheless written on the old woman's wrinkled face. But Demelza's declaration had also confirmed what he and the others had suspected but never dared speak about. That there was indeed a rift, here, buried at the heart of Penmalkine.
How can you be sure?
Valen's words cracked through the silence, like a splintering branch.
That a rift can be found here.
Demelza regarded the mage with a quiet intensity, her lips curling into a wry smile.
It is a secret, long passed down from master to apprentice.
Her voice, while weighted with age, was clear and authoritative.
But not only that.
She drew a breath, then continued.
The eyes were begot in hell and burst from the rift.
Her hand drifted instinctively to her chest, where the amulet containing the Eye of Krevik hung hidden beneath the folds of her tunic.
Each holds a fragment of their dark sire's power.
A flicker of something, a shadow, or perhaps a memory passed over Demelza's features.
They are drawn to the rift, as a child is to its mother, and we, their keepers, can feel that pull.
Valen swallowed hard, weighing Demelza's words. He remembered the strange compulsion that drew him towards the library, the sense of something malign and unseen luring him forward. He wished bitterly that Amos had prepared him better, trusted him with these secrets, rather than stumble into them blind. He felt foolish in his ignorance, but beneath his shame, another feeling stirred, quieter yet sharper still. Envy at Demelza's knowledge.
But what is the purpose of this place?
The question escaped his lips, craving answers.
Why was Penmalkine built, and by whom?
Demelza nodded slowly.
After Vortigern was defeated by Derwin at the Battle of Carolan, the 5 Hellstones were taken from the tyrant's crown and given to the 5 keepers with the intent that they should never be brought together again.
This we already know,
Valen replied, recalling the battle with the undead Vortigern in the twin hills of 4 Rivers. Yet the memory felt like it belonged to another lifetime.
Oh.
The old mage acknowledged with a low sound, before continuing, her words slow and deliberate.
But the first keepers did not truly understand the power of the Hellstones. They were drawn back to one another, converging here at Penmalkine, a temple built by hands far older than theirs.
So there was not always a rift here? Lena's question cut softly in the gloom. The old mage turned her gaze to the cleric, her eyes glinting in the moonstone's cold light.
No, indeed.
Demelza's answer was simple, yet poised with revelation.
Here the keepers gathered this great library, intending Penmalkine to be a sanctuary of knowledge and wisdom. But once together, the power of the Hellstones grew, and with it, corruption took root.
Then what?
Valen felt the riddle of Penmalkine was about to unravel.
One among them, Kadur, was the keeper of the Eye of Mordgren.
A hush fell heavier still among the company, though Lena muttered a blessing under her breath.
The dark god slithered his way into Kadur's dreams, with whispers of redemption and hope. The keeper became convinced that the Hellstones could be used for good. Kadur persuaded the others to join him in a ritual to harness their collective power. But it was Mordgren who had seeded the knowledge of that ritual in Kadur's mind.
As Demelza spoke, the shadows in the room seemed to crawl inward.
When the ritual was complete, the power of the Hellstones was harnessed, but not for good. Instead, it tore open a rift. Realizing too late that they had been deceived, and as a creature of nightmare began to emerge from hell, the keepers retreated, sealing the inner vault.
The old mage fell silent, letting the enormity of her words sink in. The truth struck Valen like a blade.
The Wardens of Penmelkine. They were the first keepers of the Hellstones.
Demelza nodded approvingly at Valen's insight.
Yes.
Slowly, the old woman reached inside her tunic and drew forth a heavy gold amulet, its centre holding a perfect emerald that glimmered in the soft light. Valen glimpsed Edith shifting uneasily out of the corner of his eye, and he too felt a pull, a subtle pressure, like an ebbing tide tugging at his soul.
Recognizing their failure, the first keepers wrought amulets to ward against the Hellstone's power. They passed the eyes to their apprentices, who fled Penmelkine, sworn to keep the Hellstones apart for all time.
The old woman tucked the Eye of Krevik back into her tunic. A clarity settled over Valen as the fog in his mind lifted. At last, he saw the truth of this cursed place.
The bodies in the outer vault. They were the first keepers, doomed to remain here in atonement for their sin.
As I introduced Demelza's character, it struck me that I needed to find a rationale for how the Keepers of the Hellstones were largely unaffected by the harmful powers they exude. I remembered how I had described the Eye of Mordgren being contained within an amulet, which provided a perfect explanation. Clearly in the past, Valen has been exposed to one of the Hellstones, but this is the first time in play that the party have been in the presence of one of them. On that basis, whilst I had previously described their powers as insidious, I need to establish the mechanical effects of the Eye of Krevik. As a reminder, Krevik is the dark god of greed and envy, and his Hellstone's powers reflect this sphere of influence. Outside of the amulet's protection, the Eye of Krevik bestows upon its bearer a +2 bonus to Constitution, with any associated increase of hit points. It also grants the ability to cast the following spells from the sorcery discipline, once per day: Clairvoyance, ESP, Alchemy, and Steel Magic. Casting is automatic and does not require an intelligence test. All this sounds rather good, but the Hellstones are cursed artifacts. Not only does the bearer suffer a -1 penalty to wisdom, but each time the bearer casts one of the Hellstone spells, they must make a save versus death or lose 1 soul point. Soul points are a new character attribute that I have created. A character's soul points are equivalent to their wisdom plus their hit dice. So for example, a level 5 character with a wisdom of 10 has 15 soul points. The more soul points lost, the more the bearer will become obsessed with the Hellstone sphere of influence, and behave accordingly. If a character's soul points fall to 0, their soul is lost to the dark gods, and upon death will spend an eternity in hell. Not only that, but anyone within a 10-foot radius of the Hellstone must make a save versus spell, or for 1 day suffer the negative attribute effects, and may behave in a detrimental manner associated with the Hellstone sphere of influence. The amulet, however, offers some protection from the Hellstone's powers. It grants the bearer and anyone within a 10-foot radius a +4 bonus to saving throws against its effects. Having said that, the presence of a rift at Penmelkine means that the amulet's protection is diminished, offering a +2 bonus to saving throws rather than their usual +4. If you are interested, you can find a full description of the effects of all the Hellstones at legendofthebones.blogspot.com. So the final thing to do therefore is to test the character's resistance to the Eye of Krevik. First up, Beric, who needs a 12 or more to pass. A 19. Lena needs a 7 or more. A 15. Valen next. The mage needs a 10 or more to succeed. A 5. Well, that is congruent with what we have just heard in the narrative. Taalien needs an 11 or more. A 17. Edith needs a 13 or more. A 7. Oh my goodness. Like that result for Valen, it's like the dice have just listened to the narrative. And finally Demelza herself needs a 5 or more. An 8. So for the remainder of this day, both Valen and Edith will gain +2 to their constitution, but lose 1 point of wisdom. One final thing while I'm here behind the screen. You may recall that Valen found a scroll in the outer vault, which describes some kind of closing or sealing ritual. Given what the companions have now learnt, I'm going to make an intelligence check for the mage to see whether he realises that its purpose is to close the rift. A 15 is a success. Okay then. Chapter 66, Part 2, Day 62, Late Afternoon. Party status. The party status is unchanged. Edith supported Demelza beneath her arm, steadying the frail weight of the old woman as she rose shakily to her feet. The old mage's joints creaked, and a faint moan escaped her lips as she straightened. With patient hands, the apprentice brushed the dust from her master's clothes, then went about fixing the old mage's hair until it sat in a long silver plait which hung down her back. If anyone had been looking, they might have noticed Edith's fingers furtively touching the chain about Demelza's neck. But as it happened, their companions were too distracted, busy gathering their things in anticipation of moving on from the cursed library. Lifting her own pack, Lena swung it onto her shoulders and stepped towards Valen, who was checking through his things almost too methodically, as if he were trying to divert his attention. Reaching out, she gently touched him on the shoulder, her fingers brushing gently against the skin of his neck. The mage shivered involuntarily at her touch. He turned, eyes locking with hers. Lena leaned in. Her words were for him alone.
I worry for you, Valen.
The mage's brows drew together, his expression uncertain.
You are the keeper of a hellstone.
Her words unfolded, gentle, yet carrying weight.
You may feel the eye of craving more.
Valen's face softened, as if he were relieved to share some unseen burden.
It is true,
he confessed, and the cleric noticed that there were fine beads of perspiration on his brow.
I can feel its grip, and I fear Edith does also.
His eyes flickered briefly in the direction of the other mage, before returning to Lena. He drew the cleric in, his head bent to her ear.
If it takes us, you must act.
His voice was low and unsteady. He pulled back, fixing her eyes with his own.
Promise me.
Lena's eyes were wide with trepidation, yet she inclined her head in a small, determined nod. Valen's hand rose up to cup her cheek. His touch was warm, tender.
Whatever happens, know this. You have brought me hope and joy. Something I thought I would never feel.
Lena smiled and placed her own hand on his chest.
And I never knew what it was to feel loved until you.
They lingered there, only breaking apart when they heard Beric's footsteps approaching.
We should go,
the warrior announced. Suddenly, Valen's eyes widened with some recalled memory.
Wait,
he said, already pivoting back to his pack. A moment later, he drew forth the ancient scroll he had found earlier.
Demelza,
He called out to catch the old mage's attention.
we found this in the outer vault.
He offered it to Demelza, who took it with her bony fingers and began unravelling it with deliberate care.
At first, I understood not its purpose.
A hint of excitement crept into his tone as the old mage's eyes swept across the arcane runes.
But now I see.
Demelza's eyes finally lifted to meet his. She held his stare for a heartbeat longer than was necessary. Something bleak and resigned passed over her features.
I see it also.
Her voice trembled at the edge of composure. Valen's expression faltered, revelation giving way to the haunting truth of what it meant. Edith noticed the shift, her own face tightening with concern. She glanced at Demelza.
What is it, Master? What's the matter?
Demelza turned to her apprentice, offering a smile, though Valen knew it to be a lie.
All is well, dear. Valen has found the means by which we may close the rift.
Then turning back to the mage, her face hardened into a mask of grim resolve.
Well then, we have a task to attend to.
Ever since Valen found the ritual scroll, he has been pondering on its purpose. He knew it was intended to seal or close something, but until the presence of the rift was confirmed, he could not be sure. He also knows that the talks found on the dead wardens are important. These are to protect those in the presence of the rift from its harmful effects, while the ritual is undertaken. But here is the rub. While the incantation is spoken aloud, a hailstone must pass through the rift, along with its keeper. Now the companions are about to enter the final part of this dungeon, and as such, now would be a good time to apply some protections against what might lie ahead. I do not want to metagame the situation, but it strikes me that with everything the companions have witnessed so far, they may have an inkling that the end of the dungeon is nigh. As the most perceptive of the group, I'm going to make a wisdom check for Lena. If she succeeds, then I'll give the party the choice of proactively readying themselves. But if she fails, they will continue unprepared. Lena needs to roll equal or less than her wisdom of 16. A 16! Oh, that was close, but nonetheless, it is good enough. Looking through the party's available spells and miracles, the only one I think is worth immediately casting is Taalien's Resolve Charm, which if successful will grant each member of the company a +2 bonus to saving throws. The bard will need to roll a 15 or less to weave the spell. A 9. I'm also going to make a preemptive prayer check for Lena, the result of which we will hear in the narrative. Okay then. Chapter 66, Part 3, Day 62, Late Afternoon. Party status. The party status is unchanged, except that Taalien has cast Resolve. Taalien's long slender fingers danced across the harpstrings with an almost otherworldly grace, coaxing from them sounds like rain cascading in the stillness. Each note rose and shimmered, swelling through the vaulted recesses of the library, echoing from shelf to shadow. His voice, bright and clear, rang like a beacon in the gloom, slicing through the darkness until the very shadows seemed to slither back into the corners. As the companions listened, their hearts quickened. Hope flared like hidden embers, and courage unfurled within them, like banners caught in the rising breeze. When the music faded, it left behind not silence, but a resonant stillness, a quiet resolve woven into the air itself, lingering like the scent of rain after a storm. Together, the company moved towards the door at the farthest point of the library, their footsteps falling softly on the ancient stones. Beric took the lead, his knuckles whitening on Callus Cledder's hilt. He reached out, his calloused palm brushing against the cold iron of the latch ring. With a deliberate twist and a slow, steady push, the great door shuddered and began to yield beneath his strength. The time-aged timbers groaned, disturbed from centuries of rest, as the door swung open, revealing a wide, domed corridor beyond. Its curved walls were smooth and bare, their emptiness a stark contrast to the carved reliefs that adorned earlier walls. Here, it seemed the space devoured light, the moonstone's enchanted glow falling short, and casting only a pale circle a few feet ahead. Had it not been for Taalien's music still echoing in his memory, Beric might have faltered, unnerved by the unnatural shadows pressing in from every side. But instead, he stepped forward, not without fear, but with the stubborn resolve of one who refuses to bow to it. Lena moved up beside him, the cleric's face calm, yet aflame with conviction. In the deep gloom, the faint shimmer of her golden aura glowed like the sun's first rays at dawn, and as she advanced, the darkness visibly recoiled, curling away in retreat. It moved like oily black tendrils sliding over the stone, slinking back with silent liquid motions. As they pressed deeper, the companions felt the air grow heavier, thicker, its warmth unnatural, oppressive. Gone was the cool, dry air of the library. Here, the atmosphere was fouled by a cloying stench, like sulphur laced with rot. It clung, bitter in their throats, growing sharper with every step. Ahead, the stonework narrowed and rose into an archway where the passage ended. Here, the last vestiges of the darkness pooled, clinging to the arch like a sentient black veil, rippling and shuddering, but unwilling to spill into whatever lay beyond. Beric glanced at Lena. The cleric's face was serene, almost radiant in its calm. When she spoke, her voice was bright and clear, each word ringing like a bell.
Solon, Lord of Light, bless us this day. Hold back the darkness, let it recoil from thy grace. Ignite our hearts, that we might do thy will, for we are thy servants, as we stand in thy glory, thy power, and thy light. So let it be, now and for eternity.
Almost at once, the golden haze surrounding Lena blazed into brilliance, flaring like a newborn sun. Radiance surged outward, flooding the corridor with living light. The black veil shuddered, writhing in silent agony. Rents appeared within it, splitting and crumbling to motes of nothingness, drifting away like ash caught in a wind that no one could feel. Within heartbeats, there was nothing left. And there, in the centre of the chamber beyond, lay the thing they had sought and dreaded in equal measure. A wound in the world itself, a dark, pulsing tear in reality. The Rift. Thank you for listening to Legend of the Bones. I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you like what you've heard, then please consider rating and reviewing the show in your podcatcher of choice. Not only do I love seeing the feedback, but it really does help the show reach new listeners. As always, where would I be without my amazing cast of voice talent? Returning to the show, playing the role of Demelza, is my mum, Ros Williams. Apart from being fabulous, Roz is a member of her local amateur dramatic society and has also done work as an extra. Also returning to the show, playing the role of Edith, is Chloe Elliott. Chloe is an actor, singer, composer and content creator, as well as being a cast member of A Deck of Many Aces, an actual play D&D podcast. Thanks must also go out to Jim Hurst for providing the music which accompanies Taalien's spell Resolve. Jim is a very talented composer and musician who has collaborated with me on all of Taalien's music in this season. My sincere thanks to both my mum, as well as Chloe and Jim, whose links I'll put in the show notes. You can also help by liking or reposting new episode announcements, or by recommending the show online or to a friend. You really can't beat the power of word of mouth. Alternatively, if you would like to show your appreciation by buying me a metaphorical cup of tea, then I have a Ko-fi page at ko-fi.com/Legend of the Bones. Any donations will go towards the show's running costs. I also have a range of merchandise, which can be found at www.redbubble.com/people/legendbones. All items are presented at zero markup. I make no money from them. It's purely to give something back to fans of the show. Finally, I'd love to know what you think of the show, and I do respond to every message I receive. So with that in mind, you can contact me on X at LegendBones, Blue Sky at LegendBones, Mastodon at LegendBones, at ttrpg-hangout.social, Instagram at LegendOfTheBones, email at legendofthebones@gmail.com, or go to legendofthebones.blogspot.com for show notes, house rules, character profiles, art, maps and more. Join me next time to find out what awaits our adventurers as the bones decide their fate. None shall escape the destiny of Bone.